All right, this morning let's talk about order paper versus bearer paper. It's an important distinction because the type of paper that you have determines what endorsement you need in order to negotiate the check, the draft, the note. The words pay to or pay to the order of. Pay to or pay to the order of cash, or maybe if it's just left blank, pay to the order of blank. That means the document you have is bearer paper. Negotiating bearer paper shouldn't be much of an issue. Whoever is in possession has the right to payment. What about order paper? Well, the words pay to or pay to the order of would make it order paper. Pay to the order of a specific person makes the document order paper. In order to negotiate order paper, you need endorsements. Now think about a check. Most people are familiar with checks, so let's talk about checks. What does it mean to endorse a check? It means you sign the back of it. Here's an example of the back of a check. Let's imagine that the front says, pay to the order of Joe Smith. Joe signs the back. He's endorsed it. This type of endorsement is called a blank endorsement. He just signs it. He writes nothing else. Now it's bearer paper. Whoever is in possession of the check is entitled to payment. Now, Joe doesn't have to endorse in blank. He can add some things. For example, he can add the name of the person or the entity that he wants payment to go to. So here's an example of that type of endorsement. Joe wants payment to go to Bob White. He writes the words pay to or pay to the order of, and that makes it a special endorsement. A special endorsement just means that the endorsement specifies who the paper is being transferred to. Couple of important points. First, Joe could have transferred this to Bob without the special endorsement. The blank endorsement that we looked at a minute ago works to make it bearer paper. Therefore, if Bob was in possession of bearer paper, he can cash it. He's entitled to payment. Second, the words pay to on the back of a document don't carry the same weight as they would in the front. In a previous slide, we talked about the words pay to and how pay to on the front of a document, any document other than a check, serve to make that document non-negotiable. That's not the case on the back of a check. It's not the case for an endorsement. The words pay to have no impact on the negotiability of the document. Also, look at this example. Pay to Bob White makes it order paper. Bob, below Joe's signature, endorses this thing in blank. Now it's bearer paper again. So the endorsements can switch the document back and forth between order paper and bearer paper depending on the language used. Let's talk about restrictive endorsements. Look at this example. Joe wrote the words for deposit only. That's a restrictive endorsement. Restrictions can be placed on a special endorsement also. For example, in the previous slide, we wrote pay to Bob White. Could be made a special restrictive endorsement by adding the words only, pay to Bob White only. That restricts payment to Bob only. Or maybe it adds some other condition after specifying Bob White. So you can have combinations of these things, special, restrictive. Another type of endorsement, last one I want to talk about this morning, a qualified endorsement. In this case, I have paid to Bob White without recourse. Without recourse just means that if this check bounces, don't go to Joe Smith. He's disclaiming all liability. That's an example of qualifying language.